She thought she was being smart. She shoved past an elderly man, dropped her groceries onto my register, and smirked like she owned the place. Her excuse: "A life is for the quick ones." But karma doesn't always take years. A broken bar, sometimes it's waiting just 30 seconds ahead of. If you've ever dreamed of watching instant justice unfold right in front of you, buckle up. This is the story of how a rude customer thought she could cheat the system, only to find out that life might be for the quick ones, but karma is quicker. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive in. It was one of those days in retail where the air just feels heavy. You know what I mean, the kind where customers seem a little more impatient, the lines a little longer, and the fluorescent lights a little harsher. I'd been working in that store for a few years. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. My role that day was the second on-call cashier. That meant I wasn't always at a register. Sometimes I was stocking shelves or helping customers, but the moment the main checkout got too busy, I'd be called over to open a second register. It's the kind of position that teaches you two things: patience, see a broken bar, and how to keep a straight face when someone does something truly ridiculous. The golden rule of the second register. The store had a simple policy when opening a second register: when you switch it on, you gesture to the next person in the main linear, the person who's been waiting the longest. They get served next. It's about fairness. No cutting. No racing. I loved that rule. Not because I was a stickler, but because it stopped chaos from breaking out. People don't always realize that in retail, fairness isn't just courtesy, it's survival. That afternoon, I was restocking paper towels when I heard my manager's voice over the headset: "Register 1 is getting swamped. Can you open up 2?" I grabbed my login card and headed to the front. The first register's line snaked halfway down the aisle. At the very front was an older gentleman, a mid-70s maybe. He had a slow, deliberate way of moving. He'd already placed a few items on the conveyor belt and was holding the rest in his basket. I stepped behind register 2, logged in, and caught the gentleman's eye. I gestured: "Sir, come on over. I'm open here." He smiled a small, grateful onia and began lifting his items back into his basket so he could carry them to my. And then a broken bar she appeared. From two people back in the line, a woman of probably late 30s, sleek bob haircut, expensive-looking coat, strode forward like she was walking a runway. Her eyes darted from me to the older man, a broken bar, and then she accelerated. In a move that could have been in a wildlife documentary, she sidestepped him entirely, swooped into my lane, and slammed her items onto my conveyor belt. The noise made the plastic rattle. I blinked. "Ma'am, actually, the gentleman here was next." She didn't even flinch. She just looked me dead in the eye and said, "Life is for the quick ones." The way she said it like it was some sacred mantra of the superior made my jaw clench. It wasn't just that she'd cut in line. It was the smugness. The way she'd reduced a basic act of decency to a competition she thought she'd won. I turned back to the older man, ready to back him up. But he gave me a soft wave and said, "It's all right. Let it go." There was kindness in his voice, but also tiredness, like he'd seen this kind of behavior too many times before. So I nodded. I wasn't going to start a public argument over at a broken bar, but I also wasn't about to forget it. As I started scanning her items, I took her in. Her nails were perfectly manicured, painted a sharp crimson. Her phone at a top-of-the-line model sat on the conveyor next to her purse. She didn't look at me. She was scrolling through something, smirking at whatever she saw. There was an air about her, the kind of person who sees customer service workers as part of the scenery, not actual people. When I finished scanning, I gave her the total. She reached into her wallet and pulled out a crisp banknote. No coins, no small bills. I started counting out her change, sorting the coins carefully into my palm. And then, just as I had the exact amount ready, she suddenly looked up and said, "Oh wait. I think I have change. That way you won't have to give me so much back." Now, I could have paused. I could have smiled politely, waited for her to dig through her purse, and adjusted the total. That's what most cashiers would do. But this wasn't most customers. This was life is for the quick ones, lady. And I realized at a broken bar this was my opening. Without breaking eye contact, I leaned forward and gently placed the exact change I'd already counted right in front of her with a soft smack on the counter. Then, in the sweetest, calmest voice I could muster, I said, "Life is for the quick ones." And I smiled. Not a fake retail smiley, the real kind. The kind that says I win. Her face froze. The smirk evaporated. For a moment, she just stared at me, processing what had happened. Her cheeks flushed a faint red. She grabbed the change, maybe a little too forcefully, and stuffed it into her bag. Then she scooped up her groceries, turned on her heel, and stormed off, her heels striking the floor like tiny hammers. I glanced at the older man. He'd been watching the whole thing. And as she disappeared out the door, he gave me the slowest, most deliberate thumbs up I've ever seen. No words. Just pure, silent solidarity. It wasn't a grand takedown. I didn't humiliate her in front of a crowd. But in that brief moment, she'd been forced to test her own medicine. And I'll tell you, sometimes, that's all it takes. Because here's the truth, people like her walk through life thinking rules are for everyone else. They take, they cut, they cheat because they believe no one will stop them. But sometime as a broken bar someone does. Since that day, I've thought a lot about her motto, "Life is for the quick ones." Maybe she thought it made her clever. But here's the thing, a broken bar being quick might get you to the front of the line. It won't get you respect. It won't get you kindness. And it sure as hell won't protect you from karma. So to anyone who's ever been shoved aside, talked over, or dismissed, remember, you don't need a big stage to deliver justice. Sometimes, all you need is a smiley broken bar and the perfect. She thought she'd won. She thought her arrogance had paid off. But the look on her face when I threw her own words back at her, that was worth more than any paycheck I've ever earned. If that story gave you a little faith in instant karma, smash that like button and tell me in the comments, What's the fastest you've ever seen justice served? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that prove karma never misses.